Okay, then first of all then, Prananda, good afternoon all. Welcome to the Standards Committee of the Tydfil County Borough Council. Today is Friday, the 15th of March, 2024. We are videoing, and there is a link. I'm presuming that the public are aware and are engaging in the meeting today. Yeah, can I welcome those who are attending? If we now go to the agenda, and the first item is apologies for absence. Michelle.
None received, Chair.
Thank you, all noted. And agenda item 2, could we have any declarations of interest in relation to any matter that is going to appear on the agenda today? There are no declarations of interest. If something should crop up that you feel you have a declaration of interest, please intervene and just make sure that that declaration is declared, even if it's during the course of the meeting. Thank you. We can now go on to agenda item 3. That's minutes of the previous meeting, and that's at agenda item 3. And if you've all got a copy, yeah, if I could take us through. I'll firstly go page by page, just for accuracy. So that's page 1 of the minutes, and page 2. Do we all agree that's an accurate record of the meeting which took place on the 1st of December 2023? If we now go through and we'll go on to any items or actions that haven't been dealt with that are not on the agenda today. So that's page 1 and page 2. Are we happy that everything has been concluded that was on that agenda and there's nothing to be left over from it? So we're happy to approve and to accept these minutes, even though they were submitted to us for information. Agreed?
Yes.
Thank you. If we now go on to agenda item 4, which is analysis of data in respect of complaints received by the authority between 2022 and 23. Caris.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I ought to confess that this is all just a little bit fraudulent, because Martin will know that this is actually a report submitted by the Complaints Officer to the Governance and Audit Committee. And all that we've done is adapt it so that it's presented to you. Then when we agreed at the outset that we would have various annual reports to this committee, we agreed that one of them was complaints data. But because that data has to be presented to various different the local authority, what we've done here is simply take the report and audit. We produce it here for you to have the opportunity to go through it again. It's already been governance and audit and had a bit of a discussion going through there. So this is really for you to have a look at this data and see if there is anything that you wanted to raise, any questions or any issues. What we had said, we had our previous look at complaints data last year, was that it would be historical data so that you could see any trends and you could see any comparisons that you needed to make. So you've got that within this document. And it is quite a detailed report. It's actually prepared by Gaynor Lewis, who is the complaints officer. So she provides you with information. I'm not sure the best way to deal with this. Probably the easiest thing to do would be just to ask if anybody's got any questions or any issues arising from the information that you've got there.
Well, if I may then, Caris, if I will carry on with that, then are there any questions that anybody wishes to raise? We'll deal with that issue, and then I'll perhaps ask you if there are any issues that you wish to highlight for our attention. Please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Caris, just a simple one, really. You mentioned that the report was originally for Governance Committee. Does it go then as an information report to our Social Services Scrutiny Committee, just because of the volume, I suppose, around the Adult and Children's Services Committee?
Yeah, I'll have to confess that I don't actually know that it definitely does, but I would have thought that it does. And what I can do is find out and let you know. And if it doesn't, there was no formula for it, so we can ask that it goes.
Yeah, I think similarly, as chair of education, just maybe as an information report, because I think it's useful to note rather than I think the complexity of some complaints, especially in adult and children's services, would be one that you couldn't fully discuss within a scrutiny committee, I would imagine, because of the sensitivity around things and data protection. But I think for scrutiny members to just note it, maybe. I mean, there's more information in there if I was a member of the social services committee. For example, chair, if I were a committee member on that committee, I would be asking officers why the increase 21, 22, 22, 23 around specifically those children's services complaints. They, so there's a little bit they could dig into.
Yeah.
But not necessarily a matter for this committee, I don't think, but it's just an observation and perhaps more than a question, I guess.
I think it's something that I raised on behalf of this committee last year.
Right.
I think Simon Jones presented to us last year.
Yes.
And the issue I raised was, this is primarily for our information.
Yeah.
Because in relation to the work of the standards committee, there's nothing specific
No, I agree.
that we any actions that we'd required to take.
No.
So this is just for information only, and it would have gone through audit and governance. So I agree, it's a sort of a convoluted way.
And
it's nice to receive some information, but truthfully, it's nothing that we can actually do with the information.
Sure.
In relation to the role we perform for this local authority.
I can see Gareth wants to say something, and then I'll say.
Sorry, Gareth.
Chair, both myself and Declan are on the social services, but I can't 100% recall us having that.
I've definitely seen it before, to be honest, and I sit on the governance and the social services, so
You've definitely seen it at governance and all.
yeah, so
Neither of
I'm not
those,
sure if it's
no.
one or both, to be honest.
Let me.
I think it's both. I'm sure it's gonna.
I think we have seen it.
I mean, let me take it away and make sure, and I can
Yeah.
confirm to everybody whether that happens. I think what we thought was useful for standard was to identify if there was any trend data. If, for example, if there were a particular area where things were noticeably getting worse, then you would have an interest in monitoring that.
That's the September last year.
Oh, there we go.
There we are, right.
Right. What I would say, Carl, so you finish with this and then I'll sort of come
Yeah,
back on that.
so that was what we looked at originally. Not that this committee would take specific complaints and look at them or kind of complaints or any of that kind of issue. It was if there were a particular area where there was concern because there were growing areas of complaint. For example, the issue about children's services and complaint lockdown, it's purely anecdotal, but it tend to happen because people couldn't go out as freely and see children, or conversely, because they did go out and see children and parents felt that might have put at risk because they might have been exposed to infection. Lots of people just complained because they had time to do it. So that there is data which support that as being the reason why that. And various places where that's interrogated and looked at. But that's the point. So you would say, look, there's trend data seems to suggest there was an increase there, and just to keep an eye on it and to see then whether that is something that's being managed.
If I may, I'm really big on patterns and seeing if there's any things that are going one way or the other. Having read through this, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it does identify any particular patterns that should be brought to bear on the focus of the Standards Committee. Am I right?
I don't think there was anything. I mean, Martin can tell us whether there was anything identified in governance and all.
I'll go back through my notes.
There we are, yeah. I mean, I'm not aware that anything was identified as a result of this report. I think everybody acknowledges across all local government across the world basically is that during lockdown people's behaviours changed. And for example, the information governance team that we have, which deals with freedom of information requests, because people were in confined spaces, they had less opportunity to distract themselves with other things. So what they did was report. And partly, let's find out what these people we pay to run our services, what they're doing about all of this. So constant requests for information. So because of the period that this covers, we still see a bit of that effect. But in terms of trends that would enable you to think, oh, well, there's a problem with the way the local running services, it doesn't identify. And it does, I agree, suggest that the complaints handling is pretty efficient. The Gano has produced that report, and it's very thorough and shows the systems and the evidence processing
she provides seems to suggest that. And it'd be interesting to see what the figures are looking like this time next year when the next report comes
We
out.
do get one every year.
Yes,
It was there last year.
but then we can
Yeah.
compare.
Yes,
them.
and that was the point. When we had it last year, we didn't really have much in the way of historical information, so we could do comparisons. So this is much better because it gives you some comparison. Next year, you'll be able to see without much further away cataclysmic event which changed the way everybody operates. And I would hope that it will be a little bit steadier again.
Yes, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Declan reminded me of the date which was really helpful. We did discuss this at governance audit. And when you look at about lessons learned from this, the thing to remember is that the number of complaints by itself is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes you can say that's a good thing. So we're
Yes,
encouraging people to engage with us and express their views, good or bad. It's the number of complaints that are upheld is really sort of a significant issue. I think if I didn't ask it, I certainly intended, with my notes as I intended to, was to ask about, I know it isn't a league table, but how do we compare with neighbouring authorities? Volumes of complaints, trend analysis. If we are doing particularly bad on recycling and somebody else doesn't have those, what are we doing that's different? Have we done something in the public arena which has created sort of discourse? I don't know, but that's kind of comparative analysis as well as trend analysis over years. Comparative other authorities of learning and how we can learn from them might be helpful as well.
I don't think we do that in a sort of formal setting. We do in management team is we look at complaints, information and trends within various services and then try and identify if there needs to be comms around those services, that there need to be improvement in the services themselves. And that's normally based, at least to some extent, how are we doing compared with everybody around us? Because if everybody's saying the way waste is managed isn't a great way, I see what every other authority is doing. Is anybody doing better than us in terms of satisfaction from the public? Is anybody doing better than us in terms of how they do it? And if nobody is, should we be the innovator? Can we come up with something that improves? So that happens within the sort of management function. I'm not sure does the comparison with other authorities. So I'll make a note and see if we can find out whether that would be something we could do.
And if somebody else has actually done that work.
Yes,
Could I just bring us back to the role of this particular committee? As interesting as that might be, perhaps it's for another committee to have that level of detail. Because ultimately, as the chair of this particular committee, it isn't the reason that we exist. Because even if we had all that information, still it would just be for information, not for any action. I just want to be clear. I'm saying that. Pauline, a new member, because it might be confusing that a new member might come on and start thinking about, oh, we've got to start looking at this.
Exactly.
That is not the goal of what we have. So I was going to suggest that in relation to this, we accept it, thank him and the team for all the work they've done in providing the information for us. Pauline, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Sorry, I didn't want to be. It's all right. I was
Just
going to say
repeat myself, Pauline, I understand, long you're okay. I just want to be clear, as a new member, in relation to this particular document, it is very much for information.
Yes.
Because I wouldn't want any of us around the table thinking, oh, we're looking at this now and we need to progress. It's just for information, because it fundamentally does not touch on the issues why we exist, which is about our local authority elected members and the assembly. So I would just propose that we accept it for information. And as I said, we thank yourself, look forward to the information, Dana and the team for what they've done. And look forward to the report again next year.
Yeah.
But on the same basis, it's for information.
Great, thank
Thank you. If we can now move on to agenda item 5, that's an update on the Ombudsman's investigations.
Yes, so, your chair will let me mention he made, but we have, I think, advised you that there are 2 live ombudsman. One of against individual members, the results of some allegations that were made. That was an incident which occurred, I think, in February of last year. It occurred to the ombudsman some months later, but soonish, I think. And still hasn't been concluded. So I have placed the ombudsman really help to that member being, but receive the response, take up to 12 to conduct their investigation. There doesn't seem to be much we can do about it. Even aware whether they do interview the person who made the complaint. So there's not much of an update with regard to the other matter, which is more pertinent. Remember, we've had the discussion, you had a hearing, you made a decision in respect of what you upheld as being a code, but the outcome of that, and as far as we were concerned, that was the end of that. That was then referred. There is an issue about what locus the Ombudsman has to intervene. Standards have made a decision in respect of that. So there are 2 issues running alongside each other here. One is the role that it plays and whether the Ombudsman has a role once a determination has been made by standard. The other is the Ombudsman does have a role. What is the outcome of any investigation? And given that that then was something that arises an incident at a council meeting in February of last year. I think when standards dealt with it last year, so the complaint went to in July of last year. So do you want to explain just a little bit about what you said in the chair's forum?
Thank you, Carrie. Yes, I took the opportunity, and I'll update you on chair's forums that I've attended during the last 6-8 months. On the 29th of January, we had an All Wales Chairs Forum. It was a bit of a question and answer session, and the Ombudsman, Michelle Morris, attended. So on behalf of this committee, number one, I asked the question, how could Standard Committee help the Ombudsman in her particular role? And anticipating the answer would be, of course, making sure that we did the local resolution stuff and we acted proactively. Having received that response, which is what I expected, I then said, give the example, well, we did exactly this. Now, the Ombudsman's office, because the individual that complained about another individual, like the result, then took it back to the Ombudsman. And as a result, the Ombudsman's office is now looking at whether it's appropriate, that the action we carried out was appropriate. When indeed, our action wasn't subject within the context of an appeal anyway, which I found absolutely amazing. The Ombudsman has suddenly someone said, I'll go back and have a look at it. And she spoke to the investigative team. We've had a response.
Yeah.
And I think perhaps you could pick it up.
Yeah, so I would double act here. So, yes, so we then had a request from the Ombudsman's office, which seemed to suggest that despite the fact we had sent them all the information about the procedure that we followed, that they didn't understand the procedure that had been followed. So we set all of that out.
Didn't make it up,
again,
No.
and gave a detailed time. We also sent the internal dispute resolution procedure. From the comments that were being made, it seemed that the Ombudsman didn't recognise that we had a separate internal dispute resolution. Yeah. So we sent that off, and I've heard nothing since. So we're now coming on to 4 weeks since we did that. But having said all, I genuinely now hope that that covers any gaps that the Ombudsman might have thought existed in the process. Because I think somewhere the Ombudsman seemed to think didn't have to deal with this by way of an internal dispute resolution process. Maybe the Ombudsman so, what is it about this room? Is there okay? So that's all been sent off, and I hope that that will bring some resolution now. Again, it's one of these things that goes on for such a long time. I'm not sure how it is anybody, including the Ombudsman's office, which is clearly completely swamped, and is tying itself up
Chasing their tail with this
these
thing.
kind of things.
Absolutely.
Where arguably they dealt with.
What I have said to Caris, if it is required, then I am more than happy, along with Caris, go down to the Ombudsman's office and speak to and go through this issue once again. So, you know, that's not a problem. But my big concern, I know it's the concern of this committee and always has been, it's about the well-being and the welfare of the individuals involved. Because once again, we expedited this matter within the Constitution and the rules of the hearing that we did and the way we did it, exactly to the rules, and it was resolved. Now, it seems to be still back up there somewhere with individuals, whether they be the person that complained or the individual that was subject of the hearing, still concerned about, has it been clear or hasn't it? So, you know, there's a duty of care, and I give you my word, as your chair, that I will keep on following this resolution in this matter. Plus, so I come in, all the other chairs in Wales are concerned because
This has happened.
we've got an example now where it perhaps has all gone a little bit awry, and they're concerned because they might very well do the same. So we've created not a precedent, but we've sort of, here we are as ambassadors for procedures. It did obviously Paris's office. Lisa.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And I think we all supported you in that sentiment last time as well. And thank you for taking that up. Because undoubtedly, not just for this local authority, but for all the local authorities, it does make you question, well, hang on a minute, surely then is the Ombudsman going to look at each institution and each procedure? And so it opens up a can of worms. And I think, again, my biggest concern for the individual who's still waiting 12 months on from a public referral, wasn't it? You just said for a public referral, still waiting 12 months on, and then the other individual whom we dealt with next year, it may lag into maybe 18 months if you think about it, because we dealt with it last July and it's still ongoing. Who is the Ombudsman answerable to is my question, because I think, you know, not that we can necessarily have do anything about it, but, you know, just to echo our sentiments about people's health, mental health and well-being. I expressed to you my own personal issues when, you know, an issue I had been referred to the Ombudsman about took significant time, and you know, during that time I thought, well, I'm just going to resign anyway, I can't take the pressure, I can't, you know, it made me think of all myriad of different things, and it was an awful situation, and I must thank the monitoring officer for constant reassurance that, you know, the matter would get dealt with. I wouldn't have got through it, I have to say, had I not had that reassurance. But, you know, thinking of these two individuals, yeah, it's a long time, isn't it? So, you know, we have in the complaints procedure a duty to respond and acknowledge within X amount.
Absolutely.
And then we answer within X amount. I appreciate looking at the number of complaints that they may be overwhelmed, but then surely something needs to happen, because, you know, it can't just keep on riding this time wave, can it? You know, it's really not acceptable. I don't think we can answer that. I think I'm just speaking out loud.
There's to a due process, but sometimes due process can have a detrimental effect on the individual subject of that process.
Sorry, Chair, that's what I meant to say, sorry, is that I'm thinking back to another Ombudsman complaint that I wasn't involved with, but I was aware of, which would have needed significant investigation and time, okay, because the file may have been that big. But I'm thinking back to these two particular complaints, and I don't know the whole story with one, but I know somewhat of them. But I genuinely believe they could be dealt with quite speedily, even as a layperson.
And this is something that we have included, and I looked, I've seen the report that was submitted
Yeah.
to John Morris, the Ombudsman's office, and it did include those statements and
Right,
comments.
okay.
But what we can do as a result of this meeting, perhaps, guys, we can now reinforce, because it's been a month since we had the response, and show that we're keen to get this response.
Yeah.
So we start a bit of pushback now, because
Yeah.
I agree, Lisa, and I'm sure, I'm seeing nods on the table. This is something that we take very, very seriously, and that is a duty of care, and the least that we can do is we need to sort of knock the door to say, come on, we need to move on this one.
Thanks.
You know, we can do that. Sorry, Lisa, I didn't cut you off.
No, thank you. I think that is what it is. And as I said, innocent until proven guilty, but it's having that weight on your shoulders, I guess, isn't it? And
And
just
I
an
think,
observation.
they, when it's taken that perspective, they don't realise that there's a person at the end of that. It's just, they're looking at processes and reports and things, but there's a person that's waiting there, and they don't realise the impact that's that person's suffering. So yeah, it is. It's very. I think it's really important. Great that you raised it at the chairs, because I should imagine that all of the other authorities sort of went, "Oh, hang on a minute, what's the point of us if that's going to happen?"
Yeah.
And I think it's very ironic if they didn't understand that we had, or they believed that we had that gap.
I think they didn't understand our informal process was. Question seemed to suggest that they didn't process even. It's
And that
available.
seems ironic that
Yeah.
they're, that's their role, that they should be aware of that. But we are where we are.
So Chair, can I
Sorry,
just
Dr.
ask?
Pauline, of course you can.
Can I ask a question in terms of individuals when they are in this long situation? Cares supports them with their well-being, then is signposting that they can access particular services.
So they're entitled to services that the council provides to its. So we can refer to occupational health and usual sorts of support services. So the one gentleman has access to support services that his political party provides. That's been really helpful. But beyond that, it really is a difficult thing, because it's a personal thing to that election. So even though we can all try and be supportive, and members of the same group will try and be supportive, and there's to professional agencies where necessary, you're still an individual who is trying to deal with something which is having you all that.
The next question then, because I've come from a background in health, there would be a named person that individual would be able to liaise with and contact in time when they needed that extra. Not the actual service, but like a mentor. Does that exist within?
Not with elected members necessarily. No, that would be something that a political party in place. It's about the nature of the relationship between the council as an organisation and laws as elected politicians. If you belong to an established political party, often those things exist within the political party, but you'll know that independently, so they wouldn't necessarily have access to the same resources. Their council can offer, but otherwise it's more about support. Necessarily going to be about a solution, not the service necessarily. So it is. The bottom line is that it is difficult with that kind of thing going on. There's not an awful lot. I know people probably get fed up with me saying, "Is there anything we can do to help? We're always here. Can we help? What support do you need? Can we help?" But that's all we can do, realistically.
Could I reassure you, Paul? Sorry, Carson. Yes, and this is a good example, I suppose, when this particular issue was brought to our attention, and it was investigated, and the decision was made to do it. one thing that was paramount in all of us around this table, and we were all around this table, is the fact that we expedited it immediately, and it didn't drag on. And I'm very pleased as the chair, this particular issue, the moment it was brought to our attention that we had to convene a disciplinary hearing, it was all done within a matter of a very short time, you know, and I know we had feedback from the particular individual involved, thanking us for the way that it had been dealt with. So I just want to reassure you from this particular position, we really are ambassadors for getting things done both properly and expeditiously. There'll be issues escalated to a degree where perhaps the council will not be able to function properly. So just mentioned the fact some of the dynamics are going to happen outside. So I just want you to take that very seriously.
Can I just check, just because I don't want it to look as though we are out of step, out of kilter with anyone else. The processes we have in place are very similar, if not identical, to local authorities. So it kind of beggars belief somewhat that the ombudsman didn't understand what the processes were.
Absolutely.
It almost creates an impression we did something wrong. We absolutely didn't.
Oh, no, not at all.
I think that's a really important message to say in a bit of public forum when we look at this. I think that's really important, and it feels like to re-prosecute the case, this double jeopardy thing feels wrong entirely. Things are serious and it goes to the ombudsman, and then the ombudsman writes a report, and then this committee might consider it. To do it the other way around seems worse.
And just to
we'll see what the ombudsman has to say.
And just to reinforce, Martin, I know with another hat that you wear in relation to this, but all the other Welsh chairs, and I'll repeat myself, are watching this one keenly. And are watching for the response as well.
Yeah.
And I'll ensure that, you know, on your behalf, our behalf, I'll make sure that they all get when it's finalised. And hopefully we can draw a line to something similar happening in another unitary authority or with one of the other organisations that's in the world standards.
Well, hopefully it's just something as simple as a misunderstanding. And backtrack and say, you know, nothing to take further action, but we'll wait and see. Yeah.
Okay, unless there's anything else, thank you for that verbal update, and thank you for listening to my words in relation to what I've done on your behalf. If we now go to the agenda item 6, and now we have the council budget setting governance.
Yes.
Is this for information as again?
This is really very, very brief, but members will be aware how difficult it can be to set the budget. And elected members will definitely know how difficult it can be to set the budget. And for the last few years, because there has been a need to make savings, considerable savings, that has put huge strain on members because it's difficult to agree these things and the process is difficult. I've put this on the agenda just because I thought members might be anxious about how that process is managed, because in the domain there's always going to be criticism. Certainly when we have like savings and that there's less money around, and that council tax increases and all sorts of things which the local community may feel difficult. There are criticisms. So I just wanted everybody to set the budget. We are now looking at what the process will be for which brings it to a conclusion.
It was more speedy this year than it was. No.
It still ended up that we right to the
Right.
we were literally at the last minute getting it done.
I don't want us to get into the actual the
it's not about
dynamics of the
budget setting,
machinery of
it's
what
about
went on.
governance, yeah.
There's a danger of us over talking something that we really
Yeah.
is not our role again.
Yeah.
Lisa.
It's more of an observation than a question. Is that okay? It's literally, I think, look, I've been in local government politics now for 16 years, and you can't remember everything all the time, as much guidance as you have. And so I completely forgot about the duty of responsibility we have, don't get me wrong, but the black and white of it, the narrative around it. So what I think, and I heartedly believe helped us all, perhaps other elected members can help me with this one. But I think what helped us all in that matter was the information that was received then when we had to go to a secondary meeting. So perhaps for other members, just to explain, so we had a budget setting meeting that fell and didn't conclude at that point. You have to legally set a budget by a certain date. So we had to reconvene another meeting and look at, not, you know, you can choose whatever you wish to do, for, against, abstain, etc. But I think the reminder to us all of the duty we have as elected members to set that budget helped. And then fortunately, whilst we all had our verbal observations on the night and our questions, things like that, we were able to set a budget, whether again, agreed, abstained, you know, or against. So I think for me, perhaps preempt some of that next time round and just do that as a reminder that whilst we may not happily agree with it, or we may wish to abstain, or we still have that duty to do it. Yeah. And I think that helped us all, because I forgot about that as well. You know your role and responsibility, but that certainly helped to remind us all.
Thanks for that insight.
I just hope it helps a little bit. I don't know how my other elected members feel.
Quite right, really. Obviously, I'm not saying it was cribbed from elsewhere, but I've seen other authorities giving the advice, and it's decided case law.
It's not so much that it's cribbed, it's that is the law, and so it, you know, however we phrase.
I think you need to nudge us sometimes.
So that's all it is that we all draw that from the same law and case law, and I it's in a particular way, but these will have had the same information.
I guess it does affect standards, because when it gets very close to the wire and gets very passionate, I guess, that there is lobbying and pressure on officials as well as directions to get things over the line, and the whole training goes on behind the scenes. I'm sure we see it quite on the news, obviously, with what happens in Whitehall, etc. That's the same thing happens everywhere. I'm sure. I'm aware that at least one other local authority was very unhappy with the budgetary process, but they were told categorically that the reserve number was this, and they couldn't go any further. Or magically they went further, and sort of they were kind of say, well, it's not an open process. Lots of complaints flying back and forth between members and officers. So it certainly could be something that creates issues which comes with this committee. So that's very helpful briefing.
Yeah, that insight is important, and an understanding of the dynamics of the process, but picking up on the point you make, Martin, but realising for this particular standards committee, if we had a role, it might be way down the line if some breach of the code of conduct had been made and had been reported, and there was evidence to support. Those are all the dynamics that we have to look at. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Move on now. Yeah. Okay. If we now go on to agenda item 7, institution.
And this one is going to be brief. We have been having our workshops to go through the new proposed constitution. Workshop member, Councillor Salmon, has turned up to every one of them. So we had one last night which got us through to the end of the constitution. Some mopping up to do and seeing a last meeting to make sure that everybody and we presenting the new constitution to the council. I keep saying April, but it's going to be May, isn't it? Realistically, by the time we do that last mopping up exercise. Bring information back to the standards committee to tell you when it's passed, and to offer to do a quick run through with take you through a huge document, but we'll have, assuming this is passed, is a constitution and a user's guide, which is like a 25-page document. So what we'll probably do is take you through that so that you have the purpose of this has been not so much to change the constitution, because a lot of it remains the same, but to make it accessible and presentable so that you don't have to pay pages of stuff. So the guide to the constitution is hopefully, so I'll just bring those to you. And we'll just have a quick.
Any questions at this point? Well, I'm sure we lose a lot of sleep now waiting for the Constitution to
I know
arrive.
you're all excited.
Yes,
It'll
we
be
will. I
lovely.
don't contain ourselves. But I'm sure we shall. Thank you. If we now go on to agenda item 8, which is for me. I mentioned, which I think it was promoted by the WLGA. I think it's really been a very, very good initiative, and it's been a long time coming, this one, is where the WLGA got, and has got your Wales Chairs Forum together. Now, I initially thought it might be just like lots of forums, we'll meet twice a year and we'll have a chat. But it's been more than that, if I be frank with you, because I mentioned earlier on that I attended a meeting on the 29th of January. Now, that was probably the second or third that we'd had prior than, other than sort of getting to know you and having a chat about what we expected from the community. But in fairness, that forum, we'd had some good speakers there, and there was a Q&A session, as I said, with Michelle Morris, the Ombudsman, and it was all via Teams. I say that, it's never as good as when you're around the table, but it was good. So on the 29th, we had this, and what came out of that then was, because we did have a lot of new chairs and a lot of standards committee members who happened to be chairs, one of the issues that cropped up was chairing skills. So what they then did was they set up the second meeting, it was less than a month later, and that was on the 12th of February, where we had an All Wales Chairs Forum to address the issues of chairing skills. Now, this was very much sort of a, picking on them, what does a chair need for chairing skills? And it was very much some, if I use myself as some experienced chairs imparting their experiences to the whole forum. And there were lots of stuff, and it ended up with a sort of bullet points out of it, by the WLG, of what the skills of effective chair were. And what fell out of that then was, what's the next priority? And we've now got, what also came out of that one, I just mean that there were 5 aims of that particular workshop, and I'll quickly shout out, outline the role of a standards committee, review of the role of a chair, consider useful practice that's ongoing in all the standards committees, develop individual approaches, and we just spoke earlier about our approach to a particular issue. Sort of we were exploring the virtues of doing this, putting welfare, well-being first, and that was really appreciated by some of the other standards committee chairs. And then discuss solutions to challenge situations. Ours again was an issue that cropped up and will remain. But I just thought that was a very thoughtful way of putting the aims of the meeting, rather than it being, just have a chat. So the specific, it was almost a forum with a purpose. What's fallen out of that? Minutes. Michelle, I do apologise, but I hadn't had I sent a copy to you only this morning. So
I didn't know what you wanted.
No, what I said was, what I'm about to say is, because if there are minutes of a meeting that I attend, I think it's only right and proper. Then number one, if you want to have sight, Michelle will have a copy. If you want to have sight above and beyond what I'm sort of verbally updating you on, it's there for you to see, because I just feel it, you're more than welcome and entitled. I'm sure you the minutes, but they're there. And what fell out of the final, that last one on the 12th of February, was actually done this ourselves. Chairs the role in hearings. So what we've got a meeting which has been facilitated by a legal trainer, whoever that person is, on the 23rd of April. We're on a 3-hour session where All Wales again, we're just going to be talking through, led by and facilitated by this legal person, whoever that person might be, talking through the legal side of it, the dynamics of having a hearing, and as you all know, having apologies for having been through a particular hearing, we'll all appreciate the different dynamics of not just being a participant, but having to chair and the role that. So, and I just have a good feeling about this. So we've had 3 sessions in what's that, in the first quarter of the year? That's not bad. And please, what I will gonna raise, I'm gonna raise next time, and Vice Chair isn't here now, but I was gonna suggest for continuity that the Vice Chair attends as well, because the truth of the matter is, it's all about mentoring and we'll raise that. And again, if they are recorded, perhaps if anybody wishes to look at them. So I'm not going to over-egg that, but other than that, there's a lot of work going on in relation to Chairs Forum, which I just think, the better I am at doing my job means you've got, say, if I can call it the captain of your team, able to advise you, everyone around this table. Any questions from me on that?
No, it makes perfect sense. And I think that the vice chairs attending, and also for members of the committee reading the minutes, it's good for potentially for succession planning as well for the future. So that's yeah, I'd be happy to read the minutes. And
if there's any
willy-nilly
questions
knowledge.
at any time, to me in relation to other issues, not just in this, you know, you've all got my number. Give me a ring. The more we talk, the better it is about these issues.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And just because fully much about this, I chair standards committees in Midwest Wales Fire Authority, and most recently at Brecon Beacons National Park Authority. So I attend these meetings as well. So got some sort of cover, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's great.
How dare the ombudsman question us?
Absolutely.
We like to think we know what we're doing.
I know that. Nobody was more indignant than me. Thank you for listening to that. Thank you for your support to me when I attend these meetings as well. Bring us on to agenda item 9, which is training.
Yeah, there's not really a lot to say about this one, Chair. We haven't got anything particular planned. The annual standards conference, but that should fall this year. And what normally happens at those, that's a really great forum for as many members as we can get to attend, and often that's a way of disseminating good practice and also agreeing training issues that need to be done, and then it sort of generates from there. And we haven't got it all yet, but it is still supposed to happen this year, so I'll keep you informed about that. And I'm hoping that will be a source of some training on from there. But beyond that, I haven't say about training, because I'm not aware of any training opportunities that we can put you forward for. Something when we get.
Okay, just above and beyond that, I had a cup of coffee and like Martin and I catch up and with chair of the standard committee in Rhondda Cynon Taf, and we've got this thing about if they have a disciplinary, it's worked well, and we know it's going on, we will have an invite to go over to observe. Yeah, it will. I know it's worked well in the past.
Yeah.
And I just think that sort of thing, not say you all go over there, but those that want, we can go sort of and just listen to, with the safety of knowing this is not ours, but we're going to learn from it. So David Bowen, who's the chair over there, as
valuable.
Did very well, is that he'll keep us, because we've tend to buddied up with Rhondda Cynon Taf Council for joint training. So if something happens with us, we'll do that sort of stuff. So don't worry, Pauline, if I hear of one, I will make sure you get the call, right?
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Were there any other questions? Which brings us to agenda item 10, date of next week.
Yeah, I'm thinking probably before everybody disappears summer.
And by which time, I would hope, and in fact, I would hope that we'll get something for then about the issues we've discussed
some of the
from the ombudsman. Yeah. So how are we going to work this? Is usual thing, contact?
Yeah, I think if we just say it will be a Friday towards the end of June.
21st or the
14th, 21st or 28th.
So does anybody of the 14th, 21st, 28th know already that they can do any of it?
Can't do the 21st.
No,
definitely.
No, we
Can't
can't,
do the
right?
14th.
Yeah, Right,
Yeah, I
so
can do
28th,
28th.
nobody is saying no to the 28th?
No, no, I'm fine.
Sounds good at the moment.
Yeah, Martin, is that a? or a-
It looks absolutely doable.
Oh,
That's-
Yeah, it looks doable.
And that's
It's
good.
easy.
So once it's in the diary, then anything else that comes
Yeah,
in,
yeah,
you just say, no,
exactly,
I've already
exactly.
committed.
Yeah,
There
let's
we
do
are.
that.
So
It's the
that's
28th of June, 2 p.m. Friday, same venue there,
Yeah.
Michelle, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Which then takes us to the final agenda item, is agenda item 11. Any other item deemed urgent by the chair? Nothing's been brought to my attention. And if you're going to bring anything now, it really has to be urgent, because the word is urgent.
There's 6 things, Chair.
Anything? No, then can I, as my role as chair, thank you very much for your attention, for your attendance and your participation.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank
Chair.
you, Chair.
Right.